You are listening to Small Business Straight Talk with your host, Amber De La Garza. Amber is a sought-after coach, trainer, speaker, and writer who gives small business owners the straight talk on productivity, time management, business systems, leading your teams, strategic decision-making, and mindset. No BS, fluff, or overused jargon. Just actionable strategies to get results and succeed in business. And here is your host, Amber De La Garza, the Productivity Specialist.
Welcome, and thank you for listening to the Small Business Straight Talk podcast. Today is episode 325, Burnout Prevention and Recovery with Charlène Gisèle. If you're a small business owner who wants to learn effective business strategies, improve time management, and elevate productivity to maximize profits, reduce stress, and make time for what matters most, then you're in the right place, and I'm so glad you've joined me. Today, I get to talk to Charlène. Charlène is an award-winning keynote speaker and has built an international reputation as the Burnout Prevention Adviser, which has earned her global invitations to speak at the most prestigious stages, law firms, and financial services institutions. Charlène is a master NLP coach, burnout advisor to the leading organization who founded a unique burnout blueprint method. She specializes in empowering individuals and businesses to maximize their sustainability, potential, and by optimizing wellness, building resilience, and optimizing performance. Before we dive into my conversation with Charlène, I want to make sure that you have taken my Next Level Business Owner quiz. If you have not, I am inviting you to hit pause right now and go take my quick 3-minute quiz to find out what's holding you back from taking your business to the next level. In 3 quick minutes, you'll find out what is most challenging and then receive a customized curated playlist of the podcast that has specific episodes that address those specific challenges. What's more productive than getting a customized playlist with solutions that meet you where you're at? Head on over to amberdelagarza.com/quiz. Again, that's amberdelagarza.com/quiz. And now, let's meet our guest and get to the straight talk. Welcome, Charlène. How are you today?
Amber, I'm really good. I'm so happy to be on your show.
Yeah, we were just doing a little pre-chat. It's morning where I'm at and evening where you're at. And it sounds like you like to work evenings because you do a lot of work in the U.S. time zones. So I just wanted to say thank you so much for spending your evening with us.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, before we get started into our topic, I would love for you to share a little bit about yourself. We didn't hear in your official bio. And I mean, how did you make this your passion and the thing that you get to serve the world with, which is, self-care, burnout? I'm guessing there's a story there.
Oh, there is.
Yeah.
There usually is, right?
Yes, exactly.
Well, let's be super candid. So I believe that very often our gift can also be a curse. For me, the gift was ambitious type A perfectionism.
Mm-hmm.
It's a gift because it means you're super ambitious, very driven, but it can be a curse because you can be quite relentless about it. And I very much fell into the trap of pursuing performance and productivity at all costs, but a very narrow vision of what productivity is, at a very sort of hourly based target type of productivity, as opposed to holistic care and happiness and joy and relationships. So if I walk you through the version of me that used to be an attorney, I was completely career obsessed, which is not a bad thing. I'm still career obsessed, but the big difference is I was career obsessed to the point of sacrificing the things that would end up biting me in the end. Mm-hmm. So I chronically sacrificed sleep. I actually became an insomniac, like medically diagnosed insomnia. I sacrificed basic self-care. So I had, chronic back pain. And I sacrificed my marriage. So I ended up divorced. Classic scenario. And, it just escalated quite quickly, really, in terms of the things that were not working. And one day I decided that there was another way, and I could continue to be hyper ambitious and super diligent and very career orientated, but it didn't have to cost me my life or my relationships. So I made a change.
I love that. I actually want to ask you some questions. So,
Of course.
in working with my clients, sometimes we attach to an identity, and that makes it harder for us to change. And what I heard you share is that you still have the identity as ambitious, because someone could say, well, if I don't do this, then I'm not ambitious or I'm not successful. But I'm guessing you changed your own personal definition of what that has to look and feel like in your life, but kept the identity, which is probably, I'm sure, been your identity since you were a child. So we don't want to lose that. How did you change that definition for yourself when you were so tied to that identity?
Well, it might be a controversial answer, but I had to strip it. I had to actually lose it at an ego level. I had to almost kill that identity. And what I mean by that might sound a little bit spiritual, but I actually went on a very deep well-being journey all the way to India. And I actually went to live in an ashram for several months, where I lived with monks and gurus in a very, very modest, very much meditating and praying and doing chores around the ashram. So going from high-flying attorney in the fancy apartment with this very sort of flash marriage and, all the different things that city corporate life can offer, to a completely different environment where I was no longer a wife, I was no longer a stepmom, I was no longer an attorney, I didn't have a sort of business card, the suits and everything else that goes with it. So I stripped that identity completely, so that what was left was not ego-based, but what became very authentic. And what I found is, what really stayed with me was, why did I want to be ambitious? Because if you just don't ask why, it becomes quite shallow, and it's to feed the ego, and that's how you burn out. But what I realized when I was in India is actually the why was service. It wasn't some kind of ego-driven mission where I wanted to rule the world. It was because I wanted to serve. I wanted to really help people. I remember when I was a little girl, when I made that decision, that conscious decision, I want to be an attorney, it was because I had the fantasy that I could save people and help people, right? And I was terrible in math, so I was never going to be a doctor. Because I couldn't have passed a scientific exam. So, the next best thing I could do was to become a lawyer. That's the logical conclusion, if you think you want to save people. But even then, that can be a bit of a hero syndrome. And I think you have to strip all of that and just really look at the core. What is your deep value that motivates you? And my deep value is service and advocacy, and just putting my skills and my brain at the service of someone who needs it. And what dawned on me when I was there in India is that I did not have to suffer to do that. This is a gift, and this is a gift that I can give, but this is a gift that I can only give from a place of being whole.
Yes.
And if I give that when I'm empty, that's not a gift that I'm giving to anyone, actually. It's not doing my client a favor, it's not doing me a favor, and it's also harming the people that love me. So it's all well and good to have those very big, ambitious goals, but in the midst of it, you're harming your family, your loved one, your friends.
Yeah.
Then there's some questions need to be asked. So I had to, in a way, just give it all up to just then put back the pieces and understand that I could be a healthy, ambitious leader.
Thank you so much for sharing that. So it sounds like that was your rock bottom story, right? Like wherever that was in your life when you were able to walk away from all of those titles, as you used to call them, right? We all have a lot of titles. I would like to start our conversation with, how do we know that we are on a path to burnout? Like, what are those symptoms? What are things that are happening in our lives? Because I find that a lot of us like to live in denial until we've hit rock bottom. It's not happening. I can deal with this later. I can push it down the road. From things like major life changes, like relationships, to back pain, like, oh, it will just go away if I ignore it, right? Insert any other illness that we have in our bodies. That there's not time for that because I'm over here doing this and accomplishing this. And for many of our listeners, that's building a business. What are the tell signs that someone is on their way to burnout?
Well, such an important question, Amber, and I'm really glad that you've asked it. I would say that the important tell sign happen at multiple levels, and one of them is the physiological level. So the physiological level is actually exactly as you said, that back pain, that chronic headache, this discomfort that you're feeling, the fact that you're getting sicker and sicker. So for a lot of my clients, it might be, oh, I used to never get a cold or get a flu, but now I'm always sick and it seems to last forever and I can't get well. Or this sort of feeling that you're tired and you just got out of bed. So your body is just not energized and nothing seems to really cut it to refuel your battery. So yes, you're sleeping, but you're tired, you're eating, but you're not energized. So those are important telltale signs. At another level, there is a psychological dimension. And that's a lot more taboo because people will tell you that their back hurts, but they won't tell you necessarily that they're having depressive thoughts. And those kind of voices in our heads that go, oh, I really don't think that I'm good enough for this company. I don't think that I'm a good enough leader. I'm not sure that I can serve my clients. Oh, this is going to suck. This is not going to work. It's okay to think that once, but if you think that all day long, and if the narrative in your head is overly negative, and you become pessimistic, cynical, and a little bit jaded, this could also be telltale sign. Like the way I want our audience to think about it is, imagine like this passionate fire, and that represents how much you love what you do. And suddenly it's like, well, I don't really care. One way or the other, or it's all dooms and glooms. You might want to address that. If there has been a big shift between passion and being completely jaded, then that person is still the same person. So what happened to you, right?
Yes.
And then the other dimension, which is also really important to talk about, there are two more that I want to address. So the third one would be the relationship dimension. So is your wife, your husband, your daughter, your son starting to say, hey, mom, hey, dad, like, you're not with us. What's going on? Are the people that you love and you trust telling you, I'm worried about you? And of course you ignore them. And of course you think they're being annoying because that's what we do. But if you just wait for a moment, and I'm talking about those people that you really love and you know you can trust and they want the best for you. If you see the relationship start to deteriorate, or if you even find yourself resenting certain relationships because they become more like a burden, I'll give you a concrete example. A lot of my clients, when they are at the peak of the burnout phase, they will avoid plans because they still love their friends or family member, but they find it a burden because they have nothing to give. So they're going to cancel or avoid. So if you find yourself, I did that a lot, when I was burning out. I'm a very, very social person, but during my acute phase, I would go into my shell and I would avoid seeing people. And that's so not me. So if you're listening to this and you're realizing, oh, right, last Saturday, a year ago, I would have gone and played golf or gone to the dance class. And now I'm here watching TV and ordering take out. That's a telltale sign. And then the last one is when you start to see reduced performance at work. Whatever you do, you're less patient, it's not spot on, you're starting to make little mistakes, or you're finding it really taxing. You're finding it harder and harder, and you procrastinate a whole lot more than you used to. This is also a red flag.
Those are excellent examples. May I ask that, do you see with your clients that they have all 4 of these dimensions, or is it one and then maybe another? Like, what is the pattern that you generally see?
That's a good question. I usually see a predominant one and a lot of denial. And very often the one that is the most, I don't want to say important because everything is important, but the one that needs to be addressed the most is the one that the client is going to try to hide the most, because it's the one that hurts. So, for example, it might take me a couple of sessions before I get to the understanding that my client is, I don't want to say lying or hiding, but not explicitly telling me that their marriage is falling apart, or that they haven't spoken to their daughter in 2.5 years, or that they are drinking themselves to sleep, right? I'll find that out eventually through questioning and sort of being a bit of a friendly detective, because that's what I do and I know how to tease out the information. But typically, I don't have a client volunteering that information during session 1. It's quite rare. It happens, but those are more intervention when someone has had like that acute problem and wants to dive into that. So more of an intervention-based coaching. But if someone is in the sort of exploration phase, it's quite rare that they come to me for the first consultation and say, hey, listen, when I come home after a hard day, I just down my Chardonnay and my Pinot, and then I feel a bit better about it all.
Yeah.
It's quite rare.
There's so many similarities, and it seems that we approach a similar challenge in different ways. So my clients often share similar stories as well, that they can't turn off the work, so they have a glass of wine, and then one glass comes to 2 glasses. Or I've had clients, because they come to me to work on, time management, productivity, business systems, so that they can run this healthy business. But what might be their underlying driver is, if I don't start coming home at a decent time, I'll be divorced. Like, these are crushing things that I hear, and they are underlying motivators, because you've got clients, as in both of our examples here, that are having these real life challenges and are ready to make changes, life-changing, business-changing, to do the work, because whatever it was you said, their primary thing, whatever that one thing was enough for them to say, this is no longer working. I have to find another way. That just brings me to tears. Actually, that's why I started my business. When you talked about this passionate flame, fire, when I previously, before specializing in productivity and time management, I did business coaching specifically in the real estate industry. And I was working with very successful people that were, now I know, burnt out, didn't understand how to manage themselves, their team, time. And the way that I have explained it over a decade was that it saddened me to see that there's these people with unique skill sets, talent, success, their flame is being burnt out, stifled out. Like I believe that as small business owners, we all have a gift to give to the world. That this is like our calling, whatever that is, whether it's designing a home or being a therapist or an attorney, like we have a gift. And when we're in a state of overwhelm, we haven't taken care of ourselves, we can't manage ourselves in time. Unfortunately, we're robbing that of the world, like, because it gets like stifled out and we no longer can show up our best. So I just wanted to echo everything that you were saying. And I hope that our audience does not feel alone. Like, you're probably listening to this podcast, driving and thinking, maybe you had thought you're the only one that has these feelings. And I'm going to reach out and think that you're going to tell them too, is like, they're not alone. Like, we see this and there is a way in which you can get yourself out of those thoughts or depressive thoughts or consequences that if you continue to be in denial will be paid.
Yes, Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's not easy, but it can be fairly simple when implemented with a level of discipline. So, just an overall strategy that I like to give my client is, be as disciplined with your basic self-care as you are with your career. So if I'm not even asking you to do more, but just a sort of same level of interest, because otherwise you're actually leaving money on the table. Especially as a business owner, you are the heart and soul of the business. You are the whatever it is, whether you're the founder, whether you're the CFO, whether you're the CEO, the team leader, you're needed, basically. So if you're not around or if you're not well, there is less than you can do.
Yeah. Not everyone is ready to advocate for themselves and say, like, I deserve this. And so one way that I meet my clients where they're at is I say, because when we create our businesses, it becomes like a baby, an extension, right? Like this is how we got to where we're at, right? We're doing everything that it takes for it to be successful. And to your point, the business needs you to be your best. Like if you can't say, I'm doing this for myself, then say, I'm doing this so that my business gets the best parts of me, so that I can show up and do the things that I want to do at the highest level. And ultimately through the work, I'm sure, maybe your example too, like you get to a point where you're like, oh, okay, it's not about the business, it is me. But if you need that initial carrot that's like, you're doing this for something that truly matters to you, then say it's for the business. Because we would do this for our kids. I mean, I'm a mom, right? I don't care if my back hurts or I'm tired or whatever, like you're going to advocate for your child. You're going to do what you have to do. And so I always say, like, take that and harness it, but use it for good for yourself. Use that energy to like advocate for yourself.
100%. And, I was smiling when you were saying that because I hear a lot of parents say very often this sentence that I actually like to rephrase when my clients say it and sort of make them rehearse it in a different way, because it becomes a bit of a cliche sentence. I think it's quite dangerous if not addressed, is that, oh, I would die for my children. Well, of course you would. But would you be well for your children? I think that's a more interesting question.
That's beautiful.
Everything that it takes for you to be around so that you can be the best father or mother to those incredible children. And sometimes that's harder than to say, I would die for them. Would you be well for them? Because that's the ROI on the parenting relationship. So if you feel that your business is your baby, which is fair enough, that's how I feel about my business. Now, there might be a part of you that would die for that baby, but is there a part of you, however big or small that part may be, that will be well for that baby?
That's beautiful. All right. So when someone comes to you, you said that sometimes it takes a few sessions to get out maybe some of the core reasons or challenges. But when someone comes to work with you, where are they at in their process of either on their way to burnout, they're already past burnout? How do they find you to get the support, the coaching to course correct?
Yes, that's I was laughing because I have two sort of archetype. I either have I'm beyond burnout. I'm like burnout plus.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on burnout 100. So I have this type of client that's really aware, but just kept grinding and really much feels like they're hamsters in wheels, and they go from one wheel to another wheel and they, jump off that wheel and become another hamster in a bigger wheel, and it keeps on turning faster than they can handle it. But I also have another archetype that's more, no, I think I'm fine. This is going on and that is going on. So a lot more denial and a lot more sort of, I'm curious, but I'm not going to give out all the information. So I'm going to tiptoe around it a little bit. And typically, this second category either reaches out because their spouse wants them to, or because they've just had a scary appointment with a doctor that's made them reflect a little bit. So I have a lot of post-diagnosis realization. So, just to give you a concrete example, last month I had a client that was diagnosed as pre-diabetic. So not diabetic yet, but pre-diabetic. So decided to book a consultation with me so that we could really optimize the nutritional aspect of their life and how the sort of work stress was, no pun intended, but feeding into poor nutrition and creating this, terrible result whereby the person was actually now facing a very scary diagnosis and wanted to address that situation. And it's been extraordinarily successful. In just a few weeks, we were able to see incredible changes in blood markers by changing holistically lifestyle habits and nutrition and, removing constant snacking and removing processed sugar, things that are not complete rocket science, but will make a huge impact in somebody's life. So that happens a lot. I also have a lot of clients that have had cardiac incidents, or they, like me, come from a family where one of their parents has had a cardiac incident. So they're very aware that they need to think about it and put some strategies in place. And the other situation is often a friend or a colleague has suggested that they could benefit. So I've coached their friend or I've coached their colleague, and that person has really come out the other like transformed, and
they could see it. Yeah.
It and they share that as a gift to that person. So that's typically the sort of archetypes of client.
All right. Well, thank you for sharing. So I'm going to ask this question and you can answer it either in, ways to avoid it, but I'm just curious, what are tendencies, habits, or behaviors that you see that ultimately lead to burnout? So we talked about what it looks like after you've gotten there, those the 4 different dimensions, but what are the traits that are getting there? And you can either answer the traits or you could tell us what not to do on the other side to get us out of it.
Great question. I'll address it both ways. Number 1, perfectionism. Yeah, it's a huge one. And I think that a lot of us out there are what I call professional perfectionists. So find it really hard to delegate, quite high level of control, obsessive tendencies. And again, these are not bad qualities. These are just qualities that, if not managed effectively, are more likely to lead you to burnout. So, being quite obsessive is excellent. I personally believe that anything that came in this world, which is genius, came out of obsession and passion. So, if you're an obsessive person, like I am, good. Be passionate on top of it, and genius will come out. But if you're passionate and obsessive without measuring it at the right doses and without recovery, that becomes quite dangerous. Yeah. So those are the ingredients that are going to fuel the burnout machine. Now, the ingredients that are going to help prevent or heal from burnout are the ones that we usually are not very interested in. Specifically, meditation, relaxation, not feeling guilty when we're not being productive, daydreaming, loving, cuddling, intimacy, playfulness, being silly, just being in nature, connecting with your inner child, having nurturing, holistic relationship, being vulnerable, being candid, sharing, getting support. All of those are very tricky for your typical type A, but they're the most healing tools.
It is what balances the other extreme, right? I actually just recorded an episode about perfectionism and productivity, and I referred to it as guardrails. So again, we can have these personality types. Like I always say, one of my traits is like, I'm a dog with a bone. Like, give me a goal. I'm not putting it down. Like, I'm getting to the finish line. But as I matured, I realized that has a dark side. What if I have the wrong bone in my mouth? What if I have the wrong goal? What if I'm at all costs shutting everything else out and not even asking the obvious question of, do I have the right goal that I am setting all my fury and energy into? And so I give that as an example of like, yes, it's good. Like it's gotten me to achieve things that I've wanted to achieve, but I've also experienced the downside of that. And so what I love with the word you're choosing to use is just being aware of how there's nothing wrong with you. Like your traits are your traits. How can you use them for good? And how can you acknowledge where they're showing up and maybe, I call it the dark side, like hindering you, right? They have both light and dark sides to them.
Yeah, and I think, Amber, you're absolutely spot on with the dog and the bone. And it's one that I use as well because very often we forget because we're holding the bone so tight.
Yes.
We forget it's not even the bone we want, like you said.
Yeah.
And to put it into context, just a couple of months ago, I was working with a very, very, very successful banker who was completely obsessive about that bone. Let's call it the bone, being the promotion, and would sacrifice everything, sleep, wife, kids, you name it. Didn't matter. Tunnel vision. I'm just going to get that bone, that promotion. And actually, as the coaching progressed, we were getting closer and closer to the realization that there was another path possible that he completely had not even put as a possibility. And he now works not only with the title that he was pursuing so hard and not getting at that bank, because you know what? He got another job at another bank. And that bone was a much better bone to pursue because they honored his seniority and actually completely valued his knowledge and skills, and were happy to offer him that title that he was pursuing so hard at the previous company. And so it just proves the point, like, actually just step back and get perspective. Are you just chasing the wrong bone? Or perhaps you have it so deep in your mouth that you can't even see that you don't want it anymore. You're choking on it.
Yes. Oh, yes. I believe that coaching is about asking good questions. That's what I was taught through my journey of becoming a coach. And oftentimes we can get in these loops of asking the same questions, we get the same answers. And so when you can say things like, is there another way in a coaching session, as you know, like, is there another way to get what you want? And, it's either silent or the first response is no. And you keep sitting with that and you keep observing. And just to piggyback on what you're saying, in our businesses, when we grow our businesses and we feel unhealthy and we feel like there's a certain way we have to show up, whether it's 60 hours a week or we have to do the things and keep all the responsibilities and not delegate. And pretty soon that becomes the only path, the only journey, that this is the way it has to be to sustain the success you've already gotten or to get to that next level. But oftentimes what got you there will not get you to that next level. So we have to ask, is there a different way to even just get the same results? Let's start there. Like, is there a way that you can sustain this success, i.e. profitability, success of your business, and have time with your family and take care of your health and all of the things on your beautiful list, right? Of, meditating and laughing and enjoying life. In my experience, they've many times shut that out as even an option to have an and to that goal. That list was beautiful. And I would ask, where do you start with a client? Like, do you give them the whole list, like a menu, and say, choose one? Or do they, how do they decide of all of those lists, what they will lean into to help bring balance back to their ambition or their, journey to burnout?
That's very much tailored to the individual, depending on which area of their life are they most sacrificing. So typically I would pick the one that they've sacrificed the most. So if I have someone that's become really serious or really jaded or very cynical, I'm going to get them to baby step their journey into laughter and into mindfulness and into relaxation so that they can see that not everything has to be taken so seriously, not belittling how important and how serious everything that we are is. But if you put everything in the same basket, then and everything becomes a crisis, then nothing's a crisis. So it doesn't work. It's just going to burn you out, and you're not going to be able to actually keep that fuel necessary when you need to put out the fire, right?
Yes.
So it really depends if a person, as my client, is suffering with pre-diabetic or is overweight or has chronic back pain or slip disc, then I'm going to address the fitness issue first, because that person is the person that sacrificed their health first. So I'm going to create a bespoke program around building cardio, building strength, building nutrition. And if I have a person that is suffering from a lot of brain fogs and attention deficit and procrastination, then I'm going to work on sleep the most. And I'm going to have a sleeping plan. And we're going to work around sleep hygiene. And we're going to do visualization. If I have someone that's on the brink of a divorce, it may be that their homework is around intimacy or communication management or nonviolent communication, or partnership agreements, or having date nights with their partners. So it really varies depending on where the person is at.
So what do you find is the reason clients tell themselves they don't do those things? So they've gotten to a point where they've squeezed out working out, eating healthy, prepping their meals, going on a date night. What is the reason they tell you that they have not prioritized that?
This sense of sacrifice that, that baby, that business needed attention above all else, but also lack of awareness. Very often we're just not aware. I wasn't. So very often it's not you're intentionally sacrificing your spouse. You're not intentionally putting on weight. I don't think many people wake up and go, oh yeah, today's the day where I'm going to eat junk food and put on 3 pounds.
Right.
Maybe, but I haven't met that person yet. A lot of the time it's more of a, forgive my French, but effort attitude of, well, I don't care and I don't have time, so a pizza will do, right?
Yeah. When someone is in burnout, how long does it generally take that you see your clients get to the other side of burnout? And maybe it's different for everybody, but I'm just curious.
That's a really good question. So it depends on which episode they're on. So is this the first burnout? Is it chronic burnout, acute burnout, burnout number 1, burnout number 2, burnout number 3? I would say anywhere between a minimum of 3 months, upwards of 24 months.
And when they work with you, you're working with them to build new habits and behaviors that curb, right, guardrail a second episode or that 4th episode. So they're learning new behaviors and identifying what got them there so that they can see those signs in the future. Is that?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And also to become aware, I'm very, very burnout prone, very much. I have all the personality traits that are the ideal equation to burnout. So I've gained that awareness and that knowledge, and actually that serves me immensely because I guard myself constantly on a daily basis by setting measures in place. And my measure of success with a client is actually when they know how to do that themselves. As much as I love working with clients for a very, very long time, it's also a wonderful experience when they know how to become their own coach. And that's when I know that my job's done. And I love that.
Oh, that's amazing. As we close out, is there anything else that you would like to share with the audience about burnout? If they're listening and they're like, wow, I really resonate with what's being said. Do you have any words of advice or next steps for them?
Yes. This is not something that you are supposed to know how to do on your own. Dealing with burnout is a genuine syndrome. It's been recognized by the World Health Organization. And this type A business leader, business entrepreneur mentality, which I had, which is, oh, I can handle it and I can sort it out. And it's one more thing that I can do. That's not helpful. It's not helpful, and it's actually just costing you time and money. So invest in getting the resources and professional help, whatever that is. It might be therapy, it might be coaching, it might be support group. There is also a lot of groups around Workaholic Anonymous. So that, depending on where the financial position of people listening to us is, for some people, finances might be a concern. So you can go in different levels of support. If you have more finances available to invest in your journey, you can get professional coaching or burnout advisor or therapy, but there are also a lot of resources that can be made available to you at a very low cost to zero cost. And I think it's important to mention those because they exist.
Thank you for that. How can our listeners find out more about you and the work you're doing? And where do you like to hang out on social that they can connect?
Oh, where do I like to hang out? I like this question. I like to hang out on podcasts. It's one of my favorite mediums. So I just want to say thank you, Amber. You're a wonderful host. And the best place for your audience to find me would be to hop over to my podcast, The Charlène Gisèle Show, where they'll find a ton of tools on burnout prevention. It's my bread and butter. It's what I talk about every day. So if you have more questions about burnout, just go and give it a listen.
Excellent. And we'll link to that in the show notes. So wherever you're listening to this, just search her podcast name and you'll be able to subscribe and listen in. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your expertise. And I feel like it's such a gift that you went on that journey. And as hard as it was when you hit rock bottom, wow, are you serving the world through that journey? And, a lot of people need to hear your message. So I'm happy to have you here and help spread the message of healing from burnout. Hey, I have loved having you listen to this episode of Small Business Straight Talk. And I sure hope you found my conversation with Charlène to be insightful and giving you some strategies and tips to avoid or recover from burnout. Burnout is a very real experience for small business owners, and that's why I was really looking forward to having her on. No change. Without taking action, nothing will change for you or your business. So based on my conversation with Charlène, how can you take action to either recover or prevent burnout in your own life? Prevention is key. Being on the lookout for the signs of what burnout looks like to you and what is that path that is most certainly going to lead to burnout. Understanding those and then making those choices and course corrections is essential. I'm wondering if you have been thinking about hiring a business coach. And if you have, now may be the time. Now may be the time for us to chat. It's just a conversation, but it's a conversation with the potential to get you on the quickest path to improving your time management and elevating your productivity so that you can really enjoy being a business owner, so that you can reach your full potential to slay your goals. Whether my one-on-one coaching or my group coaching program is the best fit for you, head on over to amberdelagarza.com/call to schedule today. I look forward to chatting with you to find out if working together is the next best move for you and your business. Again, you can schedule a call by heading on over to amberdelagarza.com/call. And if you are new here, I want to welcome you. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm so glad you did. Be sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss another episode. And if you've been here for a while, do not keep this podcast a secret. Share your favorite episode with another business owner whom you feel will find it valuable. So that's my straight talk for today. Until next time, have a productive week.